Today has been a very wacky, crazy day. But anyway, here we are having a wonderful afternoon, beautiful outside. And I just wanted to take a minute before we begin to offer to those of you who are so completely loyal to watching and watch every day. Um, we are at kind of that time of the year where people need their IEPs reviewed. And if you call and would like your IEP reviewed and you use the code word um, toolkit, uh, we will review your IEP for $50 off. So that is an offer I would extend to all of you that watch. I appreciate you so much, and I hope that you'll like our page and share uh, our videos and continue to support us because I really am so excited for the work that we're doing in the education area. And the more people that know about us, the more people we can help. So um, today we're going to continue talking about the measurability of the goals in the IEP. Obviously, the goals are very important because, as we talked about yesterday, you have objectives and you have goals and you have benchmarks. And we have to be able to measure to determine if progress has been made or not. The starting point, sort of the bedrock of the IEP, is where is my child now? And as we've talked about before, because of distance learning, because of COVID 19, we don't have a great measure, if any, of where our children are now. We don't have the ability to really tune in and know where they are. Sorry, I'll adjust the screen for a minute. Give me 30 seconds here to just get it where it's supposed to be. Um, Trying to make this as easy for you guys as possible. There we go. Okay. So, um, so when we're thinking about goals and progress, let's define our terms first. So, measurability is um, is a statement of measurable annual goals. It can be academic goals, functional goals. It can be a description of how a child progresses towards meeting an annual goal, and it should be measured, and it should have periodic reports on the progress that the child's making towards the annual goal. Usually those are done quarterly. Sometimes they're done monthly. It just depends. Sometimes it's done whenever there's a progress report or a report card. So that's really, really important. The IEP team, including you parents, has to develop the measurable annual goals. And in doing that, you have to develop strategies, obviously, that will create um, a plan or will be effective in the child reaching those goals or realizing those goals. For some students, developing measurable intermediate steps is necessary, which are short-term objectives, as we talked about yesterday, and that enables parents, students, and educators to monitor the progress during the year, which is really important. And if you remember weeks ago when we talked about goals, one of the most important things is that anyone should be able to measure the progress. It should be clear from reading the goal that there is no doubt how to measure it and there's no doubt if the child's making progress or not. So that's why it's mandated and it's essential that they are written properly and that they really are measurable. So Um, and I hate when you define a word with a word, but with this word measurable, you're going to hear measurable is something that can be measured. And, there isn't a lot of other ways to talk about it other than, it's a standardized way to look at it and figure out if we're moving forward or not. So, but it really, the purpose is to allow us to figure out if a child has made progress or not towards the goal. So, to measure something is to perform a particular operation to do something. How's that? So, for example, if we were measuring weight, we would use a scale. Temperature, we use a thermometer. Those are just really easy examples. So it gets a little more tricky when we're talking about educational goals. So it's really important that we look at um, whether, if several people evaluated the student's performance, they would all come out with the same result or same conclusion about the accomplishment. And that's, as I mentioned before, if a substitute teacher were to come in, someone who's never ever met your child before, and they were to look at the goal and have to say if your child made progress over the 2 days that they were in the classroom, they should be able to know what they're looking for to make that determination. Granted, 2 days may be a little short, but you get the point. So the another issue is that the goal has to talk about not just progress, but how much progress has been made since the present level of performance. So, where the child is now, how much progress does the child have to make to accomplish the goal? So, that is another really important quantification that parents need to understand. Measurable goals or objectives um, that can be measured should be written without having to use external information. So, what that means is that it should reveal what to do to measure whether the goal or objective has been accomplished. It should yield the same conclusion if measured by several people. It should allow a calculation of how much progress it represents. And lastly, it should be measured without additional information. So I've given the example before that if an IEP goal says that the child will read a 12-page book with 80% accuracy, that is a horrible, not measurable goal. And the reason that that is a horrible, not measurable goal is because it doesn't say what kind of book. It doesn't say if it's at the child's grade level, above or below. It doesn't say if it's a book the child has read before and they're reading the same book over and over again to have this improvement and to have this measure. It doesn't say if the book has pictures that will prompt or if it doesn't have pictures. It doesn't say if it's a brand new book or, as I said, a familiar book. So that's one problem with that. The other problem is it what is it 80% of? Is it 80% of the pages? Is it 80% accuracy in reading the words properly? So then it's a letter recognition or a sound recognition, not necessarily reading. Is it 80% comprehension? So you always, always, always want to be weary of percentages when they're in goals. So there's 4 characteristics that describe measurability. And a measurable goal should, 1, an observable learner performance, what the learner will be doing, such as counting, writing, pointing, describing, etc. 2, any important conditions, such as given software, given access to a dictionary, given a book they're familiar with. It can be any one of those things. 3, measurable criteria which specify the level at which the student's performance will be acceptable. Is it going to be speed, accuracy, frequency, quality? And then the goal or objective has to contain a condition. So the learner's performance is stated next, the desired level of performance or criteria is stated last. So, for example, given second grade material, Jerry will read orally at 60 words per minute with no more than 2 errors. That's a really good goal because it tells you the observable learner performance, what he'll be doing. He'll be reading orally. The important condition is given second grade material. And the measurable criteria is 60 words per minute with no more than 2 errors. So anyone could understand how to measure that and how to determine if progress is being made. Another one is Jennifer will tantrum fewer than 5 minutes per week. So in that example, you have the performance, which is the tantrums, and we want them, we're trying to have this child progress to having them fewer than 5 minutes per week. So you know how to measure them with time, and you know who it's going to be. So that's an example of a behavioral goal. So the given part is sometimes that's just commonsensical, which is what we see in the Jennifer tantrum example. Excuse me, and sometimes it actually has to be stated, like given the second grade material. So if you, basically it's going to be given access to the internet, given access to a dictionary, given access to some material that has to be specified. That's all going to be when a given is needed. A given is not needed if, you're talking about bouncing a ball. They would, bounce a ball a height of 1 foot. Obviously, common sense, they're going to have a ball. Or a student will bounce to a height of 1 foot on a trampoline given 5 consecutive tries. Okay, the given trampoline is embedded in common sense. If you have someone doing math, given a calculator, the student will correctly solve blah, 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 is when you need a given statement. You don't need one when a student's going to swim 200 yards because the given is that they will have water to swim in. So common sense is very critical, and remember, don't put in things that aren't absolutely necessary because then it just gets confusing and people don't know truly what they're measuring or not measuring. So when we're looking at a learner's performance, sometimes that's observable. And when it's observable, especially like behavior stuff or visible, there's ways to write it that make more sense than others. So if the observable way would say that you're matching an author to a book title. A not observable would be you're appreciating art or enjoying literature. It would be observable